The lighthouse. The wind howled like a vengeful spirit as it whipped across the desolate island, its jagged cliffs standing sentinel over the roiling sea. On that lonely promontory stood the ominous silhouette of the Widow's Watch lighthouse. A relic from a bygone era, the lighthouse had long since been abandoned, shrouded in legends of terror that had kept even the bravest souls at bay. No one in the nearby fishing village dared to venture near the lighthouse after sunset. They spoke of ghostly apparitions, eerie whispers carried by the winds, and a ship from the depths of the abyss. It was a tale shared only in hushed tones, for fear that merely speaking its name would conjure the malevolent forces that haunted the area. One bitter autumn evening, a man named Samuel, a sailor in search of adventure, arrived in the village. He had heard the stories of the haunted lighthouse and scoffed at the superstitious villagers. Samuel's pride and arrogance were as boundless as the sea itself. He boasted that he would spend a night in the lighthouse to prove that there were no such things as ghosts. As dusk descended upon the island, Samuel made his way up the winding, crumbling staircase of the lighthouse. Cobwebs clung to his face, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. Once he reached the top, he gazed out at the tempestuous sea, the beam from the lighthouse casting a pale glow upon the restless waves. The hours passed slowly, and Samuel's confidence began to wane. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes were scrutinizing his every move. The wind outside intensified, its mournful wail merging with the lighthouse's own eerie chorus. Suddenly, the room grew frigid, and the lantern flame flickered and died. Samuel fumbled for a match to relight it, but before he could strike one, he heard a whisper, soft and chilling, carried on the wind. "Leave this place, mortal," the voice whispered, seeping into his very soul. "The darkness hungers for your company." Samuel's heart raced, and beads of sweat formed on his brow. He ignored the voice, convinced that it was a trick of his imagination. But then, he heard it again, clearer this time, like the anguished moan of a long-forgotten soul. "Turn back now, or face the wrath of the Forsaken." As if in defiance, Samuel lit the lantern once more. The feeble glow did little to penetrate the thick darkness that clung to the lighthouse. Desperation gnawed at him as he clung to the notion that he was in control of his destiny. And then, from the depths of the abyss, a ghostly ship materialized on the horizon. Its spectral masts loomed tall against the moonless night, and the tattered remnants of its sails billowed in the unforgiving wind. Samuel's blood ran cold as he realized that the ship, the very embodiment of the villagers' fears, was drawing closer. The ship moved without a crew, guided by otherworldly forces. Its timbers creaked and groaned, and the ghostly figures of long-dead sailors lined its railings, their hollow eyes fixed upon Samuel. As the ship neared the lighthouse, its unearthly inhabitants began to chant, a haunting dirge that sent shivers down Samuel's spine. In his desperation, Samuel rushed to the lighthouse's door, but it refused to yield. He pounded on the ancient wood, his cries for help lost in the cacophony of the ghostly sailors' lament. The lighthouse itself seemed to conspire against him, its walls closing in, suffocating him in a maze of dark corridors. In his panic, Samuel stumbled upon a hidden room within the lighthouse, a room that seemed untouched by time. There, he found a journal, its pages filled with the tortured writings of previous visitors who had met their doom. They spoke of the cursed ship, the relentless whispers, and the inescapable fate that befell those who dared to defy the warnings. As the ghostly ship drew closer, its mournful crew reached out to Samuel, their bony fingers grasping for him. He readied himself for the inevitable, knowing he was fated to join their cursed ranks. But then, a voice from within the journal caught his eye, a passage about a hidden ritual that could break the curse. With trembling hands, Samuel followed the instructions, desperately hoping that salvation was still within reach. The room filled with an otherworldly light as the ritual took hold. The ghostly ship halted its advance, its crew wailing in frustration. Samuel felt an intense pressure building around him, as if the very fabric of reality was being torn asunder. With a blinding flash, the curse was broken. The spectral ship and its crew were banished back to the depths from whence they came, leaving Samuel standing alone in the lighthouse. Exhausted and shaken, Samuel stumbled back down the lighthouse's staircase at dawn, his mind forever scarred by the horrors he had witnessed. He returned to the fishing village, a changed man, and warned the villagers of the true terror that lay within the Widow's Watch lighthouse. From that day forward, the lighthouse was left to the ghosts that haunted it, a solemn reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of the known world. And the villagers, once ridiculed for their superstitions, lived in peace, knowing that some mysteries were best left unexplored, and some horrors best left undisturbed. Years had passed since Samuel's harrowing encounter at Widow's Watch Lighthouse. The tale of his survival and the banishment of the ghostly ship had become a legend in the fishing village. Samuel himself had grown into a quiet, introspective man, haunted by the memories of that fateful night. One crisp autumn evening, Samuel stood on the same cliffs that overlooked the lighthouse, the wind tugging at his coat. The lighthouse still stood, its windows dark and foreboding. But there was something different in the air, an unease that gnawed at the villagers. Rumors had spread of strange occurrences, odd lights emanating from the abandoned lighthouse, and whispers carried on the night winds once more. The villagers began to fear that the curse had returned, that the ghostly ship would haunt them once again. Samuel, though reluctant, knew he had to investigate. Armed with the knowledge he had gleaned from the journal, he ascended the lighthouse once more. The passages were still lined with cobwebs, and the air was thick with the same malevolent presence that had chilled his bones years ago. As he reached the top, he found the lantern room bathed in an eerie, ethereal light. The room was not empty, it was occupied by a spectral figure, a woman with raven-black hair and sorrowful eyes. She looked at Samuel with a mix of desperation and longing. "Help me," she whispered, her voice echoing with a haunting familiarity. Samuel, remembering the ritual, cautiously approached the apparition. The woman explained that she was the spirit of a lighthouse keeper's daughter, Isabella, who had been bound to the lighthouse by a curse long before the ghostly ship had ever appeared. Touched by her story, Samuel agreed to perform the ritual to free Isabella from her eternal prison. As he chanted the incantation, the spectral ship reappeared on the horizon. This time, it was not an ominous force but a vessel of salvation. The ghostly sailors aboard the ship, led by their captain, a once cursed soul himself, explained that their curse had bound them to the lighthouse, much like Isabella. Over the years, they had been twisted into malevolent entities by their torment. But when Samuel broke the curse that bound Isabella, it had inadvertently broken their own curse as well. With gratitude in their eyes, the crew of the ghostly ship sailed away, vanishing into the abyss once more. Isabella, now free, thanked Samuel with a tearful smile before dissipating into the wind. As the lighthouse grew dark once more, Samuel descended, his heart filled with a sense of closure and redemption. He had not only saved Isabella but also the souls of the ghostly crew who had once tormented him, lay not in the resolution of the curse, but in the revelation of Samuel's true identity. As he returned to the village, Samuel discovered that he, too, was a ghost. He had been a lost soul seeking redemption all along, and by breaking the curse on the lighthouse, he had finally found it. The villagers, unaware of Samuel's true nature, celebrated him as a hero. But Samuel knew he could never truly belong among the living. He wandered the village, watching the people he had once called friends, knowing he was forever apart from them. And so, the haunted lighthouse remained a beacon for lost souls, a place where the living and the dead intertwined in a dance of redemption and despair, its mysteries and horrors forever hidden from the world. Years passed since Samuel had broken the curse at Widow's Watch Lighthouse, and the village seemed to have found peace. The haunted stories and eerie whispers had faded into the past, and the lighthouse stood as a silent sentinel, no longer a source of fear. But as time marched forward, the sea never relented, and the restless souls it had once claimed were not forgotten. Unbeknownst to the villagers, the curse had found a new way to manifest its malevolence. One stormy night, a powerful tempest swept across the coast. Lightning shattered the night sky, and thunder shook the earth. Amidst the chaos, a brilliant bolt of lightning struck Widow's Watch Lighthouse, igniting it in a fiery blaze. The villagers rushed to the cliffs, watching in horror as the lighthouse burned. Its flames roared like the vengeful spirits of the past, casting eerie shadows across the land. But even more disturbing was what emerged from the inferno. From the heart of the blaze, a colossal, ghostly ship rose, its spectral form towering above the cliffs. It was larger and more menacing than anything they had ever seen, and it radiated an aura of ancient malice. The villagers stood frozen in terror as the ghostly ship unleashed an ear-piercing, mournful wail that echoed through the night. This was not the same ship Samuel had encountered years ago. It was something far more sinister, a manifestation of the vengeful spirit's undying rage. The ghostly sailors, twisted and tormented, poured forth from the spectral ship, their eyes aflame with hatred. They swarmed the village, seeking retribution for the broken curse. Panic ensued as the villagers fled from the relentless onslaught. In the midst of the chaos, Samuel, the unwitting ghost who had once saved the village, watched helplessly as his home descended into madness. He realized that breaking the curse on Isabella had unleashed a darker force, a force that sought to consume the entire village. Desperate to make amends, Samuel called upon the spectral ship's captain, the same one he had freed years ago. With sorrow in his eyes, the captain explained that their curse had been redirected, twisted into something far more malevolent by the very act of their salvation. To save the village, Samuel, the captain, and Isabella's spirit devised a plan. They would confront the malevolent ship head-on, in a final battle of redemption against the forces of darkness. As the two ghostly ships clashed, the sea raged, and the heavens wept. Lightning struck the cursed ship, weakening its spectral form. The battle between the vengeful spirits and those seeking redemption raged on, an epic struggle between the living and the dead. In a blinding explosion of energy, the cursed ship disintegrated into 1,000 shards of darkness, and the malevolent spirits were banished once and for all. The tempest calmed, and the village was saved. But as the spectral ship sailed back into the abyss, it carried Samuel with it. His sacrifice was the price for the village's salvation, and he would remain with the ghostly crew as a guardian of the lighthouse, a reminder of the enduring consequences of meddling with the supernatural. And so, the trilogy of horrors at Widow's Watch Lighthouse came to a haunting end. The lighthouse still stood, now silent and empty, its mysteries and terrors locked away in the annals of history. The villagers would forever remember the price paid for tampering with the forces that dwell in the shadows, a lesson that echoed through generations, lest they forget the legacy of Samuel and the curses of the sea.